Good day, everybody. This is the Ecclesiarch here, back again with Forgecast, and a lot of you have been asking for this. I've been getting a lot of DMs. When's going to be the Forgecast? Are we having a Forgecast this week? Well, yes, you are, indeed. And here I am back again with none other than BJ the Brave once again. BJ, so welcome to part 2. How you doing? You feeling energetic?
Still sweating, mate. It's still the hottest day of the year, just as it was in part 1.
So it hasn't been long enough to change that, right?
It sure hasn't. Still got my winter outfit on.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm kind of feeling like that as well. So yeah, we're here. And of course, we're joined by our guest once again, so that we don't bore you by having you look at us for over a year already. So yeah. So here we are back again with none other than Slither. So what's up, my man?
Hey, how's it going? Yes, I'm still enjoying myself, just like in part 1.
That's perfect.
Just for like everybody who hasn't watched part 1, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
We're assuming you all watched it, but just in case you didn't.
Well, I mean, if you haven't, then what the hell are you doing here? Just get over there and watch part 1, man. Like, who starts from part 2? Like, how does that work? Anyway, so boys, I'm happy to be back once again with you. And now we are going to be discussing some spicy stuff. And I believe it would be cool to start off with our little tradition, which is the card of the week. And boy, it's going to be a hard one for me. So maybe, BJ, we start from you?
Do you know what? I kind of knew what my card of the week was, and just literally today, there's a contender. So the card of the week for me is the Implacable Conqueror. So most of you will know, obviously, that received a buff in the recent balance patch. And actually, many thanks to Slither. We had a good fun session. I've got a video coming out very soon, which people can watch, which was a deck that we built around that card. And interestingly, I didn't see it, but we think Oricon is the one who benefits most from that card. But it's my card of the week because it's just like super satisfying when it goes off. Like when you do Implacable Conqueror, then you Implacable Conqueror again. It's just like you're playing like 1E Lich cards and like 2E like Hexmark Destroyers, and you're just like, the tempo swings is just insane with like all these mid-range beefy bodies. And it's pretty cool because like some of the cool stratagems in Necrons are expensive, right? Like the 6-drop that gives you heal and like the 7-drop methodical destruction. The problem with those cards normally, like in an Imotech say, is that when you do that, yes, you remove a unit, but they're so expensive that you don't develop the board, right? So you're still behind. But actually with Implacable Conqueror, it allows you to play those big spells and still develop the board because your units are so cheap. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. I really found it fun. Honorable mention though has to go, like I say, just today. I forgot a flex spot in the Grook deck basically, and I like to play around with it and try lots and lots of different things. And the one that I put in today, which I'm really loving, it's already won me several games, is Commando. Do you remember that card?
Oh, you mean the Orc Commando?
Yeah, like stealth finisher, right?
Yeah, it's so good in Grook. It's so good because if you look at the Grook deck, what I did is gutted all of the proactive deck cards, right? So no hard shell, they've never got anything they can play like their Inspired Retribution on. So, but the problem is you don't have any proactive cards. So you do have these board states where you do a great job clearing the board, and then you have this 6, 7, 8 energy, and you can't play anything because you're like, do I just put a Veteran Stormboy out randomly? No. So actually having this commander is beautiful because you put him out and he's stealth and he's basically like a Death Leaper, right? It's that same thing where you can't interact with it. His health's too good to be kind of killed through things like Pyra or like Scorch Assaults and stuff like that. So he's pretty immune to that. And then even if he just whacks your opponent in the face once and goes back into stealth, I mean, it just gives them fits and starts. And bearing in mind, we already got something like 18 reach from the buffed Warbikers and the proper Killy and Makari in that deck. That just tips it over the edge. Like you're in danger from like 22 health, 23 health, basically, if that thing goes down. So, and it can be used to remove as well, right? It's like it's got really good stats. Like you pull it from Grook, it's got 8 melee damage. You stick Makari down, it's got 9 melee damage. It's it's a game winner in itself. It hits the face twice because it goes back into stealth. Remember, so if it hits face twice, it's won you the game. You didn't even need all your bikes and stuff. So that's my little honourable Mimi mention.
I know it's not good, but I think I always find it like pretty terrifying whenever you see it on the board.
Oh yeah, it's one of those that'll give your opponent just like complete fits. I think the one that I'd put forward for the one that I think's flying under the radar a little bit for me is the Hollowed Martyrs in Sisters, because if you remember, like when Sisters came out, people quickly stopped playing that card, and the reason was everyone was playing Sisters, and is it Mortifier?
Yeah, Mortifier.
The Mortifier like, basically instant killed your opponent if you were running that, so you basically couldn't play the card. So it's almost like everyone forgot about it. I'm telling you, man, right now that card is so powerful, so powerful. So I think that's the one that for me might be just like a little bit flying under the radar, but is really, really good in the meta right now.
I mean, I always use it in every Sisters deck. I just try to not put it on if I'm playing against Sisters, unless I know, unless it's an opponent I know, and I know that they're not running Mortifiers, because if you put it on and there's a Mortifier, yeah, you lost. But it's so good against Scarabs, it's good against like Ultramarines, it's good against the Tau. It's good against so many things that go wide. It's just good. And even if they don't go wide, you're playing against the Tyranids. Oh, hello, Acid Rain. And you put that in Acid Rain and let the Tyranids have fun. Even when Sisters were like very weak, Shumatsu noted that because of Acid Rain and that, Tyranids were having trouble against Sisters, especially if it was like something like Morven with 40 HP. And now that the Sisters are actually decent, and I think that there's one Warlord that's more than decent, but maybe on that a little bit later. Yeah.
I think maybe the only counterpoint I would have is that in the Sisters mirror, I think basically everyone's running Arco Flagellant now. And I think if Junith plays Hallowed Martyrs, it's probably still worth it, but like with Arco Flagellant, you actually get like a free damage AoE clear off one Flagellant, so you have to be careful of that. Like the Arco Flagellant becomes a much bigger swing card after you played Hallowed, but yeah, obviously still an amazing card.
Funny enough, I'm not running Arco on Junith. I don't remember if I'm running on it. Maybe I'm not even running it on Erica. I don't remember the way I'm playing them. I just don't really use them. But on Morven Val, oh yeah, that's like one of my core cards on Morven Val because it allows for some huge lethal stuff. But other than that, for my card of the week, I was really stuck. First, I was thinking Fire Prism because I was super excited for that change because finally the Eldar get armor piercing, and if not only that, you also get a 3 damage nuke to the face, which is really good. And Eldar are in a quite cool spot right now, but not good that card is not like so cool for me to take the spot. The second one I was thinking Exorcist, not even joking, because 1 Exorcist I think is staple on every Junith deck. I think 2 is an overkill. I kind of came to a conclusion that 1 is the sweet spot, because whenever you play that on 10 energy, and Junith usually does get to 8 faith, it just annihilates the enemy board. And then if you also happen to have Rites of Restoration, well, good night, because even if they take it out, you bring it back and it shoots again when it comes back. So it's nuts. It always helps me against Omezos. It helps me against everything. And in a Junith mirror, if one drops that and the other doesn't have an answer, well, yeah, once again, you're done. However, it's still not my card of the week. My card of the week will be Miraculous Feed. Now, let me tell you why. That card has been changed. It was made cheaper. I was thinking of suggesting that change for a while, but I was afraid that perhaps it would have been too much. Probably right now it's not too much, but it does have a potential to become too much if Sisters ever go out of hand. But I think that card right now is insanely good. Let me explain why. Of course, the obvious. It gives your Warlord survival. And now that it's easy to use, all Sisters should run too. Because even if you're... Like, usually when you play Sisters, you play it in 2 ways. Either you play it with a low faith cap or a high one. With Morven, I, for example, play for 4 faith. I never try to get more unless I really am lucky enough. And now, since it needs 3, I can run it on Morven, play aggro, and still get the benefit of invulnerability, which is really, really good. Second thing about that is that you can put that on and pray, which means that the enemy cannot interrupt your prey, and sometimes that means the difference between 7 and 8 faith, which is insanely good. But do keep in mind, guys, if you're playing that, if you put a shield on, the shield still breaks if they attack you, so just keep that in mind. Don't put a shield on like before the next turn if you wanted to do that like in advance. Other than that, look at this. You can also replay it on Saint Celestine now, and Celestine pretty much gets an extra turn of invulnerability, which is pretty scary because you drop Celestine, she's invulnerable, next turn she's invulnerable again. I've seen a few people do it. It's pretty scary, especially if you're running Dialogus. Or, why do that? Just drop the Celestian Sacrosanct and put the invulnerability on that, and suddenly you have an impassable front line, which is going to heal you next turn. That is also there. If that was not enough, you can put it on something like St. Catherine's and then finish them off next turn with the new and improved prey ability that it has. There's so much good things that it allows, and it's also one of the cards that allows you to play Exorcist. I fully believe that if there was no Miraculous Feat, I think playing the Exorcist would not be that good, because as you know, BJ, I was playing Sisters in the previous season as well, and even before that, and Exorcist was not that good because Miraculous Feat was very expensive, so you never really reliably got to 8 faith. Now you do. If you're playing Junith, you're just going crazy. So yeah, I think there's literally no reason not to be running that card, and I think it's like my card of the week for sure because I've been spamming Sisters like crazy. So yeah.
Please, do you do the thing on like E9 where you just don't play anything and just put Miraculous Feat on yourself and just be like, well, if you want to play something, you know what's going to happen to it next turn.
I do that, and it's so crazy because it's also a mind game, because you might not have it, and he might, whenever you do that, the enemy's like, oh, so there's an Exorcist or the Divine Intervention. Oh, okay, what am I gonna do? I won't play anything, and suddenly it turns out you didn't have anything, and you just, Also, just as a honorable mention, I've been also enjoying like St. Catherine's like legendary a lot, because you drop it, you give it Furious Reprisal, and you just shoot him in the face, and it's a sudden one shot, and if the opponent doesn't know that, it's crazy. I just had one game against Ex Limbo, who plays Tervigon. He beat me because he was very smart about it. Like, he understood what was coming. So what he did, I was at 11 faith and he had 13 HP. He used Biomorphologies to get Vanguard on his troops, and he just spammed the board with Vanguard, and I was like, okay, man, you deserve that win, because that was so smart. Because like, who would have thought of that? Like, not a lot. Because people are not expecting that. Anyway, that's for my card of the week. And just one more small mention. It's called, I think, Righteous Repugnance or something. The 2 energy card, or 3 energy. No, not that. What's that card called? The one that gives HP and a 3 faith more HP and then permanent attack.
Oh, Beacon of Faith.
Beacon of Faith is also really good, because now that they buffed the HP on it, it's very good in mirrors. Because if you're playing a Junith mirror and you got a board spam, if you use that, most of your Sisters of Battle get to 6 HP, which puts them out of the Exorcist range, and yeah, it's a big deal. Anyway, what about you? What's your card of the week?
So I was originally going to say Implacable Conqueror as well. That card. Good damn it, PJ. We said that is like such a fun card. It was really cool to like unlock that kind of archetype for Orican. I don't think it's. Unfortunately, I think the Scarabs will still be the meta for Orican, but that Implacable Conqueror deck is so much fun. It has a really nice rhythm of like you fall a little bit behind when you play it, but then you just come back so hard like after the next few turns. Super fun. But yeah, so I'm gonna have to pick a more boring card for my card of the week. I'm gonna go with just Lone Spear. In the last meta, I think some people were saying that Lone Spear was kind of underpowered. He wasn't that good, and he kind of was in the last meta, because he couldn't kill a Predator, and that's what you needed Cuz to do last season. But now that we're in like a mixed meta where people are going wide, people aren't just exclusively dropping like bigger and bigger units in the later turns. Like Lone Spear can really like do some work. Deck switch can kind of scrap with you at the start, and maybe, I don't know, like Ultramarines, they play a high factory for a flanker on like the first turn, you've just been behind for like so long. Lone Spear's been really good for coming back in those kind of games. He's basically a Hemlock on E7. Like he's really, really good. He just, I think it definitely shows in a mixed meta. So I've gone from running 1 to running 2 because of that. I don't think I really have many honorable mentions. Yeah. I think I should be really boring. I'll just say Lone Spear.
Is there any cards that you think is flying under the radar a bit, or that you think has got potential that's not been kind of really fully explored or used at the minute?
I don't think. I'm finding early blast is quite good in this meta, just because of like Eldar, Scarabs, Junith. I feel like if you can get units with early blast on, that is like really, really good. I know that's not really an option for a lot of factions, but I'm finding stuff like missile drones really impactful. Even like Dominion and Sisters. I know it's like not really a good card, but like the blast 2 on like E3, especially in like a Junith mirrors, is like a pretty big threat.
Yeah.
I know that's not like a card in particular, but blast on some kind of early card, it's good.
For sure. All right.
Just speaking of Implacable Conqueror, just to put in a few words there, it's a really cool card. Yeah, I love the buff because Necrons finally get some draw as well. I think it's a good buff without making it too strong. The only way I used to run that was a troll deck. Whenever there was like Gaskell swarming, I just whip out that Emotech with double armor and double like Conquering Tyrant, because Emotech really beats Gaskell to a pulp. Well, used to at least. And when you got Implacable Conqueror, it was very funny just dropping Monolith on him on top, but it was never really effective. It was just a meme. Now, I think it's pretty good. It's great on Oricon, as you guys said, but I'd also like to mention that one is good on Nemesaur as well, because I played Nemesaur on stream because I was playing King of the Hill. I lost to Nemesaur and I switched to it and went on a pretty hefty win streak of like 8 or 9 or something like that. It was really good, and one Implacable was always nice because you would use it and then you drop those Ghost Arcs that were now buffed, and it was getting really scary because that swarm can really get out of hand sometimes. So yeah, I would say Implacable is definitely a really cool card, and I'm looking forward to finally playing something other than Emotech with Necrons. Though I am of course a little unhappy about the whole Emotech getting kicked again, but I think he's still playable for sure. I don't think Emotech is ever gonna be too weak unless they do too much to smash him. So BJ, what were you saying?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. No, nothing really. I was going to move us on to talk about the meta, and just kind of like, I was curious what you guys are sort of, especially because it's weird talking about the meta, because when we talk about the meta now, we're talking about 4 factions. Do we think that there's 4 that have emerged, or is it still up in the air? Are there any kind of dead certs that you think are going to be in there? What do we think is meta at the minute? What do you think?
Okay, I'll quickly tell you mine. So, as I said, Sisters are good, but they're not going to be the meta. Ultramarines are still alright. I think they're not dead, but they're not that good. Necrons, pretty good, but I mean, if maybe Scarabs, but as Scarabs don't exist as far as I'm concerned, so I'm not going to conclude that. So I would say A is going to be Eldar. And Eldar is definitely going to be there. It's not only about Keltalk, because Eldar have always been a faction that were consistently good. At least they had Galen, right? And they had Eliak, which was all right. And Galen was almost always played in like top ranks, almost always. Even during the whole Ultramarine thing, there were people spamming her. And now that Eldar received some buffs, they're definitely going to be more active over there. Well, Avatar of Cain is still trash, but other than that, like, the buffs were pretty good. And Eldar, I think, definitely are going to show themselves, and they're going to be pretty powerful. Also, they have some good matchups into Chaos and stuff, so that's pretty good. Number 2 is going to be Tau. I think that Tau, even though they've been nerfed, I still think that they're going to be very strong. I think particularly it's going to be Onva against that's going to be, as always, strong, because, as I said, I played with him, and going on a 10 win streak, like, very low effort. I think he's just still in a good spot. He still has some very powerful tools. He still can pull a killing damage out of nowhere. So I think he's still really good. That's my assumption, at least, that they're still going to be really good. Number 3 would be Orcs, because honestly speaking, nothing really happened with the Orcs, and they've been even after they've been nerfed very hard, they've been really good. Like the other day on stream, I even played Gordrang and still pretty good, even though like Shadow of his former self, still pretty good. And those are my top 3 picks. As for number 4, I would still say maybe the Tyranids, because Tyranids received some very scary toys, and people are still figuring out. And yeah, I mean, Swarmlord is still Swarmlord. It doesn't matter if Ravenous is 5. He's still Swarmlord, okay? So he's still gonna do. Vandergast is strong. Neurotrope is pretty cool. And as always, Tervigon is slept on. So my choices would be Tau, Eldar, Orcs, and Tyranids. This is what I think currently. Okay, you guys?
What do you think, Slither? What you see the meta is at the minute?
Yeah, so I think Tau definitely are a meta deck. That being said, I've not run into a lot of Almvars on the ladder. I've actually think, I mean, on the leaderboard right now, there's Lord Edge in second, and I think he might be running Warshaper. He's doing pretty well with him. More power to him. I don't know if like people don't enjoy playing Tau, or they didn't perform that well last season, so they're kind of slept on. But like I think the kind of crew Almvar deck is definitely a strong contender this season. Unfortunately, Scarabs I think will be a pretty strong meta pick. Pretty good matchups into Orcs unless they kind of pull their like tech bomb squigs and stuff like that. Really good matchup into Eldar, like depressingly good matchup. Even with the new disruption blades, I mentioned this in part 1, but you can kill or get the Swarm Lord so low and just like delete your board on E5 and not play into the AoE heal. Just get like either kill them or get them down to like 2-3 HP and just be like, okay, now what? And then, yeah, I think definitely Eldar. I mean, I think like Ecclesiarch said, Galen's just always like a solid pick. Her kit wasn't really changed in this patch, although you could definitely tech Fire Prisms in just to like give you a bit more oomph in the late game and not get completely wrecked by Venom Crawls and stuff like that. And obviously, I think Keltoc's like definitely viable now. I'm not sure about Eliak. I've tried messing around with him. His playstyle never quite meshes with me, but I mean, definitely viable.
No, still pretty good. Yeah, he's pretty good. I've seen some people do big streaks with him.
Is it more the kind of like stealth and burn kind of approach, or is it like more like flyers?
He's more of the like stealth and aggro type, so his whole thing is that he needs to beat you down as soon as possible. And unlike Galen, who does that like using swarming, he does that by using his ability, because when he drops the scorpions, and then he plays his thing, the scorpion is going to be dealing 5 damage to you, and he's going to be dealing 3. That's 8 damage already. That's like getting hit by Wailing Doom. So yeah, he can be pretty good, and especially if he gets his Dance of Death early, that's 5 damage every turn, which is equivalent to Gordrang hitting you with Makari. So that's a big deal. Yeah.
What was I gonna say? Full faction.
Tau, Scarab, Eldar, and who's number 4?
Oh, okay. Well, the thing is, Orcs and Tyranids, I'm not. Yeah, they're like probably my least played factions. I think. I feel. I don't know. Yeah, between Tyranids and Orcs, I can't pick. Those would definitely be my 4 and 5.
I just go with Orcs.
Yeah, fair. I mean, Orcs they're just good every meta. When I had my Scarab run, the Orc decks hadn't started putting in their like tech cards yet, so like those matchups did feel like really, really gross. Even when they're like healing and putting armor on, like you're still just finishing them off like disgustingly early. It almost felt like a free win when I ran into a Gruk. That might change as like the meta develops, but
it's a prey deck, isn't it? I think it feels like to me that Orcs and Tyranids are tier 1 right now. Tyranids is interesting as well because in a way you have to talk about it not just from a warlord perspective, but from a faction perspective, because now it's all about faction scores, right? If you choose Tyranids, you can switch between any warlord to increase your Tyranid rating.
Yeah,
and I think that's also important in this type of system, because if you've only got one good deck in the faction and you choose that as one of your 4, if people take against you, you're screwed, right? Because you can't pivot. Whereas, for example, Tyranids, they can pivot to, like, say, Tervagon, which is really good against like Gazgul control, and it can do really well against the sort of late control matches, or it can go Swarm Lord, or it can go aggro with Terror of Ardengast, or it can even, like I saw Pootis playing Swarm Lord, and he switched to the stealth version, so he was running the Death Leapers and the Lictors, so you can even do that, So I feel like Tyranids and Orcs are like the tier 1 decks, and then you've got your Prey deck, which is Scarabs, right? Preying on the meta, and also Eldar in the meta because of the play rate. Although I actually think Eldar are going to be. I think everyone was excited about them to start with, but I think actually on a power level wise, I think they're probably tier 2. I think they're probably just under Orcs. That's what
Galen always is. Always just solidly tier 2. Never goes up much, never goes down much.
They're always top of tier 2. That's like the running meme. It's like they're always top of tier 2. But don't get me wrong, the Anvir buff is massive, guys. Like, I think Anvir is super good. It's probably my joint favorite or second favorite warlord in the game. I love the Reclaim the Stars deck. And there's going to be, just because of the Swiss Army knife thing that you can do there, that deck's going to be very, very techable, right? Like, if something's not working, you can just change stuff out and put what you need in. So Anvir is very, very good now, and might actually be the best Eldar warlord, but still early days. We'll see, but it might be. It's that one difference of making it 1E is absolutely huge. I mean, like when you're playing Chaos, right, and you can get it for free. You can take the Warp Storm offense card and get the Anvir spell for free and stuff. So I think Anvir is like really good, and I think it's probably tier 2. A lot of people will take it. I don't know whether it's going to be worth the slot, because then you're saying, well, do you put that in before Abaddon? Do you put it in before Tau? Your Tau deck Slither that you're already at 3.2k with. Like, is that better than Anvir? It's going to be close.
I would probably say, yeah. I think one point you're saying with the Nids and how you can swap between the warlords. Unfortunately, like with Tau, you are locked into that.
Exactly. And that's what I was thinking. Tau are a little bit more.
Yeah, if the meta is very oppressive to Anvar, I think Scarabs would be quite tough for him, because even if you run 2 of the AoE cards, like, use those and rebuild the board, then what? If the meta becomes bad for Anvar, there's not really a good tech option. Maybe I don't know. I mean, people are pushing Warshaper. Maybe there's something there, but like, I don't think Warshaper is stronger than Anvar.
So I feel like Ultramarines are nowhere near. Chaos is struggling, although Abaddon's still fairly strong. Believe it or not, my top score right now out of the 4 is Abaddon, because I just played by 20 games with him and went like 17-3. I was like,
I mean, Abaddon is still great as always. I think the problem with Abaddon currently, I think if Puggy mentioned, or maybe I'm wrong, but I've also noticed that that I also love Abaddon. The problem currently is the overwhelming number of Eldar, because Abaddon doesn't have a good matchup into Eldar in general, because whatever you drop, they can take out, they go very aggro, and they can finish you off. So it's kind of hard. If you do manage to drop something on the board and go in a way that you have more HP than them, you go on the aggro, then you can win. But it's hard to beat the Eldar with Abaddon. It's not easy, and now they can. And during the older days, your main strat was just drop the Venom Crawler and win. Now it's not the case. You drop the Venom Crawler, they're gonna drop the Prism. So it's thing.
I also almost feel though like we've got to talk about Abaddon. Like, there's Abaddon, and then there's like Buggy Abaddon. And I say that because I know last season the play rate was massive on but outside of that, Abaddon and Harken in the beginner ranks, and then it becomes Abaddon when they get the card, is like the highest played faction still, season in, season out. And I don't know about you guys, but I always think, like, sometimes I'm playing against Abaddon and I'm like, what are they running here? Like, there's so many variants in the decks, and there's a lot of different ways of playing it. But if you take the buggy, I just literally call it the buggy Abaddons now, which is the serious Abaddon decks, which is the Murderous Desires, aggro Abaddon, really shit hot. And then in the right meta, the sort of mid-range, late gamey type one, which does run one. What's the card called? The Tenika.
Black Crusade.
Yeah, one Black Crusade, but it's not like memey. It's not like just run loads of 9 and 10 drops. Then it's like it's actually
more mid range,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think for me they're the two serious Abaddon decks. And I think if you're playing them and you know what you're doing, then you can still post. I'm sure you can post a pretty good score. But yeah, in terms of what we'll see, I reckon we'll see Tyrannies. I reckon we'll see Orcs, and then they're the locks, I think. And then I think it will be. I think people are gonna, after this podcast, I think we are gonna see, sadly, more and more when people realize how broken Scarabs are and how strong they are into that meta. I think you're gonna run.
I'm gonna play Uriel. I don't give a shit.
I mean, if you have a Hailstrike and Dreadnought in your deck, you're kind of fine.
That's the thing. Ultramarines are actually very good against it, right? You've got the Hailstrikes, you've got the Storm Ravens, you've got the Dreadnoughts, you've got the Uriel. I mean, you can do some. But again, this is where the whole thing of having the meta and the prey decks, it's all going to rotate around.
Mm-hmm.
If you're running Scarabs though, and you're locked into Necrons, you've got to think what your backup faction is. Your backup deck, is, and maybe you switch to Imi Control. Maybe you run like the Oricon Artifice deck. I don't know. It's going to be open, isn't it? And people are some people are going to want to play Sisters. Some people think Junif. I mean, we've got Papa Beard in our faction, and he's like top 3 with Sisters at the minute. He's doing really well with Junif. Thinks it's the best inevitable like late game deck in the game. I'm not sure about that, but he thinks
it's one off.
It's one of though, yeah, one off for sure, yeah. So yeah, the interesting thing is, I don't think there is going to be necessarily just like one style that everybody copies, which is surely good for the game.
Wait, just on a quick aside, has anyone played against the new Predator now?
Yeah,
there's no reason to play that now. You're back to the helicopter, so
yeah. Oh yeah, I know. I just meant like, have you had it played against you, and you just have this like feeling of euphoria, seeing there's no armor on it, and you can just like send the flanker in, use some 2 damage stratagem, like, and it's dead.
Yeah,
I know.
It feels so like nice to see the Predator played now, and you just clear it with like normal stuff.
It feels so nice to play the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, that deck was. It's brutal.
That had no business having 1 armor on it.
I mean, it's one of those moments when there's only 2 times that this has happened in this game. That was the moment when even when content creators like saw the reveals and we all said, okay, no. And then players also said, okay, no. But it's still released, and we all said, okay, no, and we suffered for a month. It was like 2 things. One was the Predator. I remember when we saw that card, we were like, oh my god, this is hell. And the second was when we saw that Gaskell was dropping 2 grots. Like, we were like, okay, turn 1 4 grots. Good idea. So, like, yeah, that's exactly why I think, like, things like quick fixes should be a thing, just like they did in HHL for Lotara Sarin when it went a little crazy. And speaking of which, maybe we could move on to the Genestealers, and we could also compare it to the Alpha Legion.
Let's talk a little bit about the Steelers. So right now, guys, when you listen, if you're listening to this podcast, we don't know how many reveals you will have had. You'll have probably had a little bit more than what we're currently doing, but so far Ecclesiarch and myself have revealed our cards. So there are 10 cards that are out in public domain, so we're not spoiling anything here. If you've not seen those videos, go and check out our channels or check out the Warpforge Discord. But anyway, early impressions, guys. So what do you think to this faction? From what we've seen, the sabotage, the ambush, what are your thoughts? What about you, Ecclesiarch? Start with you. What are your early...
Well, so are any of you like lore-wise Alpha Legion fans? Okay, so
and bring in the HHL and the Alpha Legion stuff as well.
Essentially, let me tell you what it is. So Alpha Legion and HHL, even though it's not like too similar to this, the Alpha Legion was one of the most... It was actually funny. I remember once I made a tier list. It was tier list made up of 2 tier lists. The most fun to play faction and most fun to play against the faction. So Alpha Legion was S tier in terms of being fun, but it was like lowest in terms of being fun to play against. Because it's super fun. You sabotage the enemy, you put some traps in his deck, and when they would draw it, something would happen. You would like sabotage their hand, and when they would play something, it would get stunned or just attack its own troop. Like, they have so many cool tools. They're so cool to play. Like disruption, stun, can't attack, stealth, but if you're playing against the Alpha Legion, you're just breaking your keyboard. You're like, like going crazy because and like you're about to win the game and suddenly draw a trap and you lose and like it's one of those things that's very frustrating, but it's also really good. Now
I'm still going to play that faction.
Like,
I don't want to play against it. I'm done.
Yeah, Genestealers give me the same vibe because it's gonna be so cool when you play with all these ambushes and you put these sabotages in the enemy hand and so many cool things, right? And they're still yet to be revealed, so we're still yet to see the legendaries or warlords even. Like, there's so many things to see. However, what I'm gonna say is that it's going to be a little tricky to balance that. And I hope, I think at some point, I think the whole thing is going to be like maybe rebalancing the cost or something. Let's say, for example, if you see the toxic supplies or poison supplies are OP, you just reduce the cost by 1 so that the enemy can play it. It's just that it's going to be giving a lot of disruption. Let me just put it out there like this. It has triple disruption, basically. A, you're putting a negative effect in the enemy hand. B, they have to play it so they waste energy for nothing. There's a similar card like that in Hearthstone called Curse, I think. And basically there's number 2, A, B, and then there's C, which is you fill up the enemy hand. So if the enemy has, let's say, 8 cards and you just give him 2 sabotages, then whatever he draws, he burns a card, and if it's overtime, he burns 2 cards. So it gets very angry. But
problem for Gruk, problem for Calgar. Those draw.
Yeah. And
could Genestealer Cults? Sorry.
Yeah, no, please go on.
Could Genestealer Cults be the one faction that can actually kill Makari?
Yes.
Yeah.
Technically speaking, yeah.
Genestealer worshipping little bug. Yeah, I mean, it's that's the idea of disruption, isn't it? It's really cool. So. I think the energy disruption is going to be the biggest thing because, like, let's say it's E6 and I need to play my Veteran Stormboy to clear your unit, and it's like, well, now I've got this 2E stratagem that I need to get rid of out of my hand. So what do you do? Do you get rid of it and not play the flanker? And I think what's going to happen is you are going to have, because I think everyone's initial think is, oh, I'll just play it and get rid of it, but it's like, no, you're going to need to play that Vet Stormboy on 6. And you're just going to have to take it, and then it's going to be how long do you take it, and can you play it next turn? But so, guys, what we're saying is that we put lots of cheap stratagems in our opponent's hand that they have to play, and they need very cheap, non-discernible things to trigger the ambush units. So, Scarabs.
Oh god.
It's like, oh, you just gave me a 2E strat. Oh, I needed that to trigger loads more scarabs. I'll hit you with my 1 scarab. Oh no, you had a big scary concussive 6-drop. Never mind, I'll hit you with the other 7 now. So yeah. Sorry guys, but scarabs are going to be the new UM.
Yeah, this is a Genestealer counter, yeah, technically. Or they give you the sabotage with that deals damage to your warlord, and you play Hallowed Martyrs and then laugh in his face or something. Yeah, that's also a possibility. Yeah. A
lot of counterplay, isn't there? We were saying earlier on the Discord, but with these things like Neurothrope's going to be good with the 1 ping to disrupt the ambush. Uriel could be really good. Morven Val could be awesome. So it's going to be one of those where, like, if they become meta, that people will be they should be able to tech what they play against.
Just one thing, I think that the faction could be super cool if they don't get, like, together with all those disruption, they don't get like super bloated units, right? So by bloated minutes for units, I say like some units that are just too overstated. Like when the Tau came out, let's say the Ethereal, the one at 4 energy, was way too crazy. Like, you played something and it was 5/5 shield, yada yada. So that's not something that Genestealer should get, because if they can disrupt you so much, if you give them like gigantic bodies as well, it's gonna be a little scary. So on the other hand, if their gameplay is solely gonna be based on these disruptions, we could get a very cool faction that's very good, because Alpha Legion is like that. Alpha Legion is just based around all the disruption they do. If their disruption doesn't work, well, yeah, it's game over for them. But if it does work, well, have fun.
What do you think, Slither?
So I think I feel I'm really interested in the sabotage mechanic. I think That kind of disruption play, I feel, would really reward you for like knowing your opponent's deck and its plays quite intricately. So, like you're saying, like Stormboy in 6, like, okay, I've got a wide board. I'm on E5. I'm gonna put the sabotage down now because I know that's its best counter. So, from like a kind of skill expression kind of point of view, I feel like the sabotage could be really cool.
Yeah, I agree.
And also, sometimes you like see, in every Warpforge game, you see certain combos and. Stuff like Stealth Drone on turn 1 on like Tau, or the DSA is coming next. So Genestealer Cults, you could put a sabotage down and be like, well, you got to commit to that combo now, or you like waste the energy to just like do nothing. I'll kill the Stealth Drone, like nice unit. The ambush mechanic, I'm a little less positive about. Obviously, we've not seen all of the cards yet. I don't. I'm just not sure how kind of coin flip kind of cards work it in a CCG.
Guess who? It feels a bit Guess Who, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, other like competitive game, fighting games have 50-50 is like a huge part of it, but there was in an action kind of fast-paced game, it's quite different, and you can pick certain things to like maybe there's like a safe option you can pick. To take less damage, or there's like a risky one which might reward you more. But in like just looking at those like E3 cards, it's just a straight like, well, do I range attack it or melee?
Yeah,
attack
which one
it?
do you do? Yeah.
There's not some like intricate mind game. It's just like, well, just guess.
Shoot it with a spell.
Yeah, or you can't not guess as well, right? Because the ambush mechanic rewards them for if you don't interact with it, then they get the ambush effect, right? So you have to do something about it.
That's what's clever about it, isn't it? That it does force you to target it because you don't want them to get the ambush effect. But then you could run into confusion. I think it's really going to reward you knowing the deck inside out. We need to see all the cards. Like you gave an example there on E3. That's going to be a good one. But the deeper you get into the game, like obviously if someone can play an ambush card on E3, at least it's one of those two. But when it's E8, you could also play the E3 one, right? So like when it's E8, that's when you're going to be like really confused and have no idea what they're playing, and just
need to, have a printout
because it doesn't. Yeah, well, it doesn't even show how much mana. Because if it was E8 and then you suddenly saw their energy went down to 5, you're like, okay, he's played one of the 3-drop ambushes, but it doesn't do that. It puts a question mark over it, so you don't even know how much he spent on putting the card down. And I agree with you actually, Slither. I'm not sure how healthy that is, and I'm not sure if it's going to feel fun to play against.
No,
I'm not, or whether the other element to it is, think of the other factions. Think how many cards are redundant, right, that don't get played. Well, every ambush card's going to have to be really bloody good, because if only 3 of them are good to be played, then it kind of defeats itself, right? Like we all know which 3 ambush cards get played. Do you see what I mean? So it's like every one of them's going to have to be good for ambush itself to work as a mechanic. Oh, and by the way, in the mirror match, what happens with sabotage? So like, if I'm carrying what was the example you gave earlier? Ecclesiarch 2-drop one. What's it called?
The poison supplies or something?
Yeah. So say I've got a poison supplies, right? So I'm ready to play that, which would then put it in your hand. But you're also playing cult, and you play out first. So have I now got 2 cards? Do they look the same? Does it look different when it's one that your opponent's put in your deck? Do I play the wrong one by mistake, thinking I was going to put that in your hand, and actually I got rid of the one? Like I'm really curious to see what it sort of all looks like in the mirror match, and does it get like a different color or something? Like they do with the ephemeral cards. Maybe it'll look like it'll have its own kind of border or color. There's got to be something, hasn't there, to sort of show you that it's not your card.
Huh.
Just purely for the mirror, right?
Well,
no, BJ, you cannot include that in your deck. Sabotages are are special cards. They are only created.
Right. Oh, okay, they're only created, so they'd never be in your hand. Okay, that makes sense.
It's a mechanic from HHL. I think we don't have that currently in Warpforge. It's called Ethereal, and we only have ephemerals here. In HHL, there are like special rarity cards. They're like whole purple. They're called uncollectibles, and they can only be generated during the game. For example, Iron Hands can generate bionic enhancements, and you cannot just slap that into your decks. So,
and we've seen 2 of the 4. Is it 2 of 4 so far?
2 out of the 4, yeah. And
so
2 are pretty good.
One is the one that if it stays in there, it does 1 damage to all your own units, right?
Troops.
And the other one is if you play a stratagem.
Mm-hmm.
What does it do if you play a stratagem?
They deal 1 damage to the warlord.
It's so good, isn't it?
It's really good.
Yeah.
I like the ambush thing that you said. Reminds me of Secret Orders from Alpha Legion. Basically, like they would put a tactic on the enemy troop, and the enemy just can't see what you played, and it can be like a 1 out of like 4 or 5 things, but usually you had like 3. One was when this troop attacks the enemy, attack your warlord instead, so it would hit its own owner. The other was if you attack a troop, swap this troop with whatever you tried to attack. And number 3 was at the end of your turn, stun your warlord and deal 3 damage. So you were like, okay, what do I do? I get rid of this, or do I attack face, or do I attack troops? So how do I get out of this, right? And you have to guess correctly. And yeah, it's not fun to play against, but it's sure as hell fun to play. So yes.
Was it tier 1 in HHL?
No, it wasn't, because like there's a lot of RNG involved, and well, I mean, at some point they were Alpha Legion, but that's because they were like newly released and they had some insane stuff. But they're always Alpha Legion, as I remember, they're always bordering the lines of. In some games they leave you completely helpless and useless. In some games they just get destroyed. So I think somehow maybe Genestealers are going to be the same. I don't know, because Disruption faction usually function like that, but we'll see, man. I don't know. We still yet to see so much about it. But either way, I'm happy to welcome another faction to the game, especially knowing we're going to get Krons as well as the Imperial Army. By the way, I got a question for you guys. Currently, our Discord, we have Imperium. Does that mean that every Imperium faction has to be slapped there? I don't think so, because we have sisters separately and they're Imperium, right? So maybe it's going to change into Imperial Army and Astra Militarum and Ultramarines. I'm kind of...
Yeah, surely they'll make a separate channel, right? I feel that would be the obvious solution.
And I guess Imperium should become Ultramarines instead. It's kind of... Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how that rolls. And
they might just upgrade, or they might just update it, like as more come out.
I got a quick question, BJ. From the roadmap, if you remember, together with the Astra Militarum, who was getting the reinforcements, or was there nobody getting the reinforcements?
Just the Necrons.
Just the Necrons. Okay, so no more reinforcements. I think there's gonna be one more. They're just not telling us. Or if they actually drop the Dark Angels, as we're assuming, oh my god, that's gonna be nuts.
Also, remember, Andreas did say that they do have more that wasn't on the roadmap that they were planning to release this year. I remember I literally clarified. I said this year, and he was like, "Yep, this year." So there's more stuff coming in. To be honest, I think they've been quite quick actually getting some stuff out. So.
Yeah, they got a lot of content out, and it's crazy good. If you remember when the game started, everyone's like, more content, and now they're like, here you go. Oh man, I'm so excited. If it's actually Dark Angels, you know why I'm excited? Because if it's Dark Angels, like, let me make a prediction. If it's Dark Angels, I'm sure it's going to coincide with Games Workshop releasing a book where the Primarchs meet, and they're going to slap Primarchs as well. We're going to get Lion and Gilliman. It's going to be so nuts. Because in HHL, we got all of the Primarchs, and here we're going to have these guys, and it's going to be so cool.
Yeah, you keep saying this, but I'm not convinced we're ever going to get Primarchs in this game.
Are you?
Because of I'm not convinced because, HHL is like 30k, isn't it? It's actually the time of the heresy, right? So it makes sense that the Primarchs are in it, but this is set in like 40k, and well, just knowing what I know in terms of like.
No, we have 2 Primarchs. We have loyalists. Really have 2 Primarchs. It's Lion and Gilliman. They are currently functioning in 40k.
But not in Warpforge, right?
Well, not in Warpforge right now, but in the lore wise, they're here.
That's what I mean.
I quite new.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see, man.
We'll see, man. Yeah.
I think Gilliman is in the Avenging Zeal artwork, but there's so many little Easter eggs in lots of the artwork. Like there's Dark Eldar in some of the Sisters artwork. But you don't know if it's actually going to lead to anything or not.
We're going to get Dark Eldar.
I really want Dark Eldar. I think
we're getting
that could lead to some really. I'm looking at it like what's going to add interesting game mechanics. Although I have to say, the Genestealer Cultists, I was not that hyped for. Like just in terms of the lore and the background, I wasn't that hyped. Then I saw the art on the cards, and I thought, looks a bit like doesn't look as good as the recent standard. I just wasn't very hyped. And then actually seeing these first 10 cards, I'm super hyped, because at the end of the day, it's a card game, and the way the game plays, the mechanics are what make it fun. And that's, I think, the disruption discardy type idea, which funnily enough is the deck I'm playing in Magic right now. I'm really enjoying like that sort of disruption type of play. So I think I'm really looking forward to them now. But I do think Dark Eldar could add something really different, couldn't they?
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Slither, so you go on first, and then I'll say.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say I would give props to EG with the Genestealer Cults, because when I first saw that faction was gonna get released, in my head I was like, oh, this is just gonna be like stealth, uninteractive flank, and we'll have to see how the ambush mechanic plays out. But I think it is an interesting attempt at making like an interactive, making kind of stealth and disruption interactive. Maybe it won't work out that great. We'll have to see. But like, I would give them props just for like not making the whole like every unit stealth, every unit and every other unit flank, which is kind of what I was thinking initially.
Yeah, they've done good on the design so far. We've only seen 10 cards, but so far,
yeah.
So good.
I mean, I definitely want to see Dark Eldar as well, because even though I'm sure we're going to get a ton of Space Marine chapters, it's good if we get some other stuff as well, because like come on, Space Marines, it cannot only be Space Marines, right?
Yeah.
I do want the Blood Angels though, and I hope they drop, because I'm sure they're going to have interesting mechanics. If they can incorporate like Black Rage and stuff like that, it's going to be super cool. I'm sure there's going to be Space Wolves down the line, and I think Grey Knights have been teased for forever, so I do see that happening as well. Black Templars, yeah.
Some people think the Dark Angels teaser at the end of the roadmap. Some people think it's Grey Knights instead of Dark Angels. Like, I mean, personally, I don't know either way, but
I don't think so. I think it's definitely Dark Angels, because it's literally a Dark Angel chaplain on the art.
Is it? Oh, wait,
yeah, we found it. Yeah.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Yeah,
I thought it was just silhouettes.
They already found it from the new book. It's literally the same art, but just shadowed out. So I think it's gonna be unless EG are pulling a fast one on us, like I think it's gonna be Dark Angels.
I didn't know the original artwork has been like sourced. That's quite props to whoever found it out.
Yeah, I mean, down the line we're gonna get some interesting stuff. There's gonna be demons as well, probably. There's gonna be some Chaos Warbands. Like, yeah, a lot to see for sure. But now I think, guys, we can wrap it up. It's been a very, very interesting episode. A lot to talk about, and I'd love to like stick around for another 3 hours and just talk about this and theory craft and all of that. But I think we're gonna have more chances for that in different content, different videos. So guys, as always, first of all, make sure to check out part 1 on BJ's channel. If you like what we do, if you like our content, just hit that like button. If you do like the content for real, then also hit the subscribe button. And yeah, stay tuned for more Warpforge. And boys, thank you for joining in, and you have a good one now.
Been a pleasure. Take it easy.
Yeah, thanks so much.